All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on how to upgrade to IBM i 7.3. This webinar is being brought to you through Help Systems and through the WebEx technology, where you can share your thoughts, your questions about this topic through the chat log feature. Feel free at any time to just drop us a little chat in there. We'll do our best to answer your questions as they go. Through today's session, Pete Masiello is going to be talking about planning tips, technology prerequisites, post-installation requirements, and other topics related to upgrading IBM i 7.3. I'm Tom Huntington. I'll be your moderator and host for today's event. I've been with Help Systems now for almost 30 years, so looking forward to working with you today and sharing our technology. But Pete, a little bit about your background first.
Hi, Pete Masiello from iTech Solutions. Been working as an IBM i AS400 system admin since 1989, covering all sorts of hardware technology, and just still enjoying my time.
You certainly do. I always love running into you at conferences and stuff. Seems like you're always got a big smile on your face and enjoy talking with the customers. So I'm Tom Huntington, our Executive Vice President of Technical Solutions at Help Systems. Pete and I are both IBM champions for 2017 and hopefully for 2018. A great way for us to keep abreast of what IBM's doing in the marketplace. So very excited to be part of that too. So let's just move ahead and get started. Before we get too far, I thought I should talk a little bit about marketing. And it's funny, and marketing of the box and IBM i in general. One of the things that we have unique in our IBM i community today is the power of social media. And anyone who's listening today can take advantage of this technology. Pete, I have a few people saying we lost audio. Are you having a problem?
No, I can hear you fine.
Okay, so maybe I'll have to drop chat. And it'd be actually good from anybody else if they are having any audio problems, but because I just came in from one person. Okay, I have a bunch of people that hear this just fine. So that one person might need to hang up, but okay, very good. Thanks for the feedback, everybody. I'll send a chat in just a bit. To them after I get through here. But anyway, some things to think about from a social marketing standpoint and IBM i. I know we have a lot of people like Pete, myself, who really care about the platform, but there are others out there too that are wondering, what can I do? Well, you can use Twitter and other technology to share various hashtags and various topics related to this community, along with LinkedIn and Facebook and other technology to share your thoughts. I just think it's really important part of the platform itself. So today we're going to talk about why upgrade, tips and procedures, and what's new at Help Systems. And first of all, let's talk about why upgrade. Well, first of all, you should know that some of the operating systems that are out there, people are still running v5.r4, and that was dropped support 2013. IBM dropped support for 6.1 in September of 2015. 7.1 goes into extended support April 30th, 2018, and when you have extended support, you are paying extra for that. So keep in mind it costs you money to begin with to stay on these older versions. Java runs faster on 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3. SQL runs faster on 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3. Support of some of the newer technologies. From the marketplace study, we see about a third of the market now running storage area networks, and certainly virtual tape libraries are very, very common these days too. And then there's new security features, and really think about patches that have come into IBM i related to security too. You want to be on the latest and greatest from that standpoint too. So those are some reasons of why to upgrade. Kind of remind you of the roadmap related to the operating system IBM i 7.1. Approximately 2010, 2014 was 7.2. 7.3 now has been around since May of 2016, so it's a pretty strong and hardy operating system. It's been worked, several, thousands of customers running this operating system already, so certainly you don't have to be afraid of being on bleeding edge to go to this technology. And then here's some past release support announcements. These are all things that you can just Google and check out for yourself, but we can see when 5.4 and 6.1 and when their end of support was put on IBM's when IBM fulfilled the roadmap related to that. And then so we're sitting here today with 7.3 being supported out into 2023. Should be good for a while. And we don't know exactly when we'll see the next operating system, but there will be another one. Then the other thing to go along with this is processor technology, and IBM's certainly putting more into this platform and continue to do that as they develop the Power processor for IBM I, AIX, and Linux on Power. We should start seeing some stuff on Power 9 here in the first half of 2018. And we'll see some things here related to some of the HPC processors for Power 9 here shortly. Anyways, before we switch over, I'm going to open up a polling question here, and I'll see where everybody's at from a standpoint of operating system level. So first polling question of the day is, what IBM I release are you on, older than V5R4, V5R4, 6.1, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3? And then if you are looking at upgrading, when do you plan on upgrading? Less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, over 12 months out. And if you haven't updated and in the past, what's preventing you from updating? Too difficult, not enough time, no budget. There's several options in there for that particular polling question. So I'll leave this polling question up for about 5 minutes, and you can answer it at your leisure. We would appreciate it. It helps Pete from a standpoint of how we present today. And Pete, once it closes, I'll remind you of the results. So let me make you presenter now.
Great.
All right, I'm just trying to get to my participant tab. Here we go. And you are now presenter, or should be.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. So we're going to talk today on what you need to know to successfully upgrade IBM I. We're going to concentrate mainly on 7.2, 7.3. I'll talk about some stuff about 7.1. Based on, we'll look at the poll as well, so we can see where people are, and then we'll shift some of the presentation to make sure we get something for everybody. Tom does have the chat open, so if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them either along the way or at the end. So let's talk about an upgrade and define what an upgrade is. You know, in this session, we're going to run through all the steps that are required to do a successful upgrade. And most of those are going to be preparation. We're going to spend a lot of time preparing and going through things, because if we prepare correctly, the upgrade is a piece of cake. There's a lot of preparation. And when I say a successful upgrade, to me a successful upgrade means the next morning the phone's not ringing off the hook, nobody's running around like chicken without a head. We have no issues going forth. Everything's just running as smooth as normal. Almost pretty much nobody knows we were in all weekend or overnight doing the upgrade. That's a successful upgrade. And if you follow the steps, and I know there's a lot of steps to follow, but if you follow them, that's what you will get. So let's kind of roll into, this is what we'll actually cover today, and we'll go through each of these areas, and then we'll kind of get started from there. So in any trip or any project that we're going to do, we kind of need to know where we're going to start from. And that's part of the reason for the question, the polling question. You know, if we said, look, we're going to travel from Chicago to Portland, you know, basically what direction are we going to go in? Well, you know, people can answer that multiple different ways, because I can be going to Portland, Maine, or I can be going to Portland, Oregon, and that's going to give me quite a different direction that I'm going. And the same thing is true about an upgrade. If I'm coming from 6.1 and I'm going to 7.2, I'm going to have to know about various things versus I'm going from 7.2 to 7.3. So, and we'll cover those in detail and make sure everybody knows the steps that they need to do a successful upgrade. So Tom talked about the roadmap, and this is important. The roadmap's important. I mean, you know, 7.1 came out 7 years ago, almost 8 years now. It's had 11 TRs. It's been out there for a long time. Something like 50 to 60% of the ciphers that came out initially, well, actually 72% of the ciphers that came out with 7.1 initially are now deemed unsecure. If you've been putting PTFs on and you're at least at TR6, then that number drops down to 50% is unsecure. So it's still a high number, as well as the default JVM is Java 6, which is, you know, old, going out of support. So there's a lot of reasons to get off of 7.1. And, you know, I don't think is a reason. It doesn't matter if you get to 7.2 or 7.3. It's just a matter of getting off of 7.1 because you're going to see a lot new features and functions in 7.2 and 7.3 that you're going to want to take advantage of. And 7.3 is, you know, is extremely stable. We've been a beta site from 6.1, 7.1, 7.2, 7.3. We've been running them for years, and it's extremely stable. Last week I was out in Rochester, Minnesota, working on things that are coming in iNext, which is the release after 7.3, and then we were also talking about some stuff about iNext +1, which is 2 releases after 7.3 out into the future. You know, where else are you getting, you know, is there a roadmap that shows you that kind of commitment to the product? So, you know, people talk all the time, oh, IBMI is going away. That is not true. It's out there. It's out there for a long time. I'm going to tell you that when the stuff comes out in iNext, it's going to almost blow your doors off because it's some really cool things that are in there. So
Pete, let me update people on the first polling question because I think that's important to what you're going to be talking about. And let me pull this out here so that we can see. You should see now. Actually, let me publish the results. Sorry, I apologize.
Yep, I'm saying we don't see it yet.
You don't see anything yet.
Okay, now
you should
we do.
now. There you go. Okay, so what IBMI release are you on? We do have somebody older than V5R4. We have V5R4. We had 6 people with that, 8 on 6.1, 79 people on 7.1. 34 on 7.2, we have 5 already on 7.3, and then we had 18 that were unsuccessful in answering the poll because it was a very difficult question. When do you plan to upgrade to your next OS level? Less than 3 months. We have 27% saying that, 25% over the next 6 months, so that's 52% in the next 6 months, 21% 6 to 12 months, 12% over 12 months out, and 14% again didn't answer. What has prevented you from upgrading? Too difficult, very little percent on that. Not enough time is the, well, actually it's the second largest. The actual highest one is not enough reason to upgrade to the new OS level. Okay, that's interesting. IBM's got to work on that one. Not comfortable doing the upgrade. You know, and not enough reason. I would say one of the biggest reasons is security. Wouldn't you say, Pete? Because you want to stay current. I don't care what operating system it is anymore. You're going to run Windows, Linux, Unix, whatever. In today's world, because of the security hackers of the world, we all need to stay current on our operating systems.
Yeah, and you can never be too secure.
Right. Very good. All right, back to you, Pete.
So perfect. Thanks, Tom. So we can see 60% of the people on 7.1. So we'll certainly cover coming from 7.1, and we'll spend a lot of time on that. So the upgrade map, this is where we're going to focus on. You know, we're going to go through the steps. We're going to go to make sure we have everything planned correctly to reduce downtime, to reduce our risk, to reduce our exposure. And this is the IBM upgrade plan, and we'll cover that in detail. So what do we need before we start? Well, you know, for those people who've been doing upgrades for a long time, they used to get a box, and in the box was the new version of the OS. There was the PTFs for that version. There were license keys all in that box. Now you don't get anything. You know, now you have to go out and download the software yourself, which is fine. You know, we'll show you how to go there and where to go to the website to that. You'll download the keys. You have to then either burn your DVDs or put them into an image catalog. We'll show you how to get PTFs and order those and bring those down. So there's quite a few things to do that you're going to do manually that you didn't have to do before. But nonetheless, you know, they're easy to do if you know how to do them. You certainly need media because we're going to do some additional backups. Sometimes I talk to accounts and they just don't have enough tapes to do additional backups. we're going to do a backup before, we're going to do a backup after. And then the question always comes in, how long does it take to do an OS upgrade? And it's that crazy answer, it depends. I mean, there's going to be time that you need to back up your system beforehand, and I'm not even going to count that. And there's going to be some time you're going to need afterwards to do a backup. But how long is the actual, start of the upgrade, do some checking, put the PTFs on? That's usually, I estimate 6 hours. Now, I estimate that because I don't know how fast your machine is. I could tell you that just recently I did an OS upgrade and put PTFs on it as well, and I was finished in less than 2 hours. They had SSDs. It was a new Power 8. We went from 7.2 to 7.3. I had the latest DVDs, the latest iBase. All these things help, and I'm going to tell you what those are so that you can, again, cut down your time. And if you follow the steps, you shouldn't need the bottle of Tums, because we're going to do things correctly and cover all our bases. So let's talk a little bit about manuals. The first manual is the IBM Installation and Upgrading Manual, and that manual, you can see, based upon the OS release that you're going to, is up at the top in red, and you just pick. So if you're going to 7.3, you just get this book right here, and you can do a Google search on that, and you'll have that. If you go into 5.4, you get the -09 book and there. So it's real simple. If I'm doing multiple LPARs, I will have a book for each release. I find that a little easier because this way, as I'm checking things off, a book for each partition rather, because as I'm checking things off, it makes things easier to keep track of each partition in their own book. So I'll print them out for each one and do that. That's definitely a good tip. The next book is the Memo to Users. Now, the Memo to Users is a little bit different than the installation and upgrading. The installation and upgrading was really for the person doing the installation, and if I'm going from 7.1 to 7.3, I just need to get the installation guide for 7.3. If I'm going from 7.1 to 7.3, I need to do two things for the Memo to Users. I need to get the 7.2 Memo to Users as well as the 7.3 Memo to Users, because this book is not cumulative. It's just for that release. And it's all the changes that happened between the previous release and that release. So if commands change, if defaults change, parameters change, new SQL keywords, whatever it is, an API changes, the length of a field changes, all those are written in the Memo to Users. So this is a book that everybody in IT, whether it be a programmer, a sysadmin, even an operations staff, should be reading this book to understand what is changing and the ramifications of those changes. So if we're going from 7.1 to 7.3, we'd read the 7.2 as well as the 7.3 book. Here's just a little example of what's in the book. And just by the way, in case anybody asks, you will get a copy of the PDF of these handouts. Tom has arranged for that afterwards. Now, if I'm on 5.3 or 5.4 and I'm going to 6.1 or 7.1, I need to run Analyze Object Convert. Once I'm at 6.1 and higher, I've already passed Analyze Object Convert. And Analyze Object Convert identifies those programs on 5.3, 5.4, or below that don't have either observability, and because if you don't have observability, you can't re-encapsulate the programs. So it will look for that and give you that information and give you a list. Those programs, once you go to 6.1, you can't encapsulate them, which means you can't reconvert them to the new format. They will not run. So it's very important if you're going from 5.4 or 5.3 to 6.1 or 7.1. You need to worry about that. Otherwise, you're all good with that. Now, in any upgrades you do, you should call all your third-party vendors. And I always say this, everybody should have a DR plan. And in your DR plan, there's a third-party software list, and you go and you pull that list and you call all the vendors on your list. And I know everybody's shaking their head that they have a DR plan. And what you should be doing is going through that and calling them. Now, I know, because we do a lot of upgrades, all the health systems products are always compatible with the newer versions as they come out. And quite a few other vendors are as well. There are some vendors who lag behind, who are still not ready to be compatible with 7.3. So you do need to call them. You do need to find out, hey, I'm running, you call them up, I'm running version X of your product, and I'm currently at 7.1. Is it compatible with 7.3? And that's the kind of question you're going to ask them. And they're going to tell you, yes, no, oh, you need to just get some PTFs for our product and put a couple of patches on, and you'll be fine to go to the next release. Whatever it is, but you want to check that off and make sure you talk to each and every one of them. Next thing we'll cover is release mapping. Now, we want to do some release mapping. We also want to do some planning. So these are the preventive service and planning documents that you'll want to get. They're called PSP. And you could just Google search them. You could do a send PTF order. So if I'm going to 7.3, I'll just look for SF98730, and I'll show you what's in there a little later. But this is part of our planning because it has some information that may have not been in the books. So this may be some later updated information that you want to read. Now, some valid upgrade paths. Hey, if we're going to 7.1, we got to be at 5.4 or 6.1. That's it. If we're going to 7.2, we need to be at 6.1 or 7.1. And if we're going to 7.3, and this should be a 7.3 here, we need to be at 7.1 or 7.2. I can't go from 6.1 to 7.3. Now, it's not a supported upgrade, and you probably don't want to do it. There are extenuating circumstances when you may be able to do it, but you really need to know what you're doing. You need to have a great understanding of Save Restore to be able to do those kind of things. And there's going to be some challenges with that as well. So I would stick to the valid, approved upgrade paths, which is, in this case, we're going 7.1 to 7.2, 7.1 or 7.2 to 7.3. So just to kind of look at some of these things, even 6.1, we had some people who were on 6.1 or 7 or 5.4. These are 11 and 9-year-old operating systems. Even 7.1, it's going to be out 8 years soon. It's, 7.5 years. So it's definitely time to move on. And as Tom said, April 30th, 2018, 7.1 software maintenance goes to extended maintenance, and the maintenance will actually double in price. So this is something you want to address now. Get up to 7.2, get up to 7.3, and you won't have the double cost of your software maintenance. Pays you just to have the upgrade done as well in that case. Now, and so we talked about skipping a release. Just to cover that again, because if I'm going 7.1 to 7.3, I need to make sure I read that memo to users for 7.2, and I can see a lot of people there. And we're going to talk about, which is the right upgrade path, because we need to look at the hardware. We need to look at some other software that you're running. We're going to look at Java, WebSphere, Domino, because these are going to dictate if we can go to 7.1 or 7.2, as well as the hardware that we're currently running. And we'll cover that in some charts in a second.
Pete, one of the things that we covered this morning was that people, if they're on older releases, they can get to 7.3, but they have to realize it's probably going to be a multi-weekend type approach, right? I mean, they're going to do it maybe 1 month, go to 7.1, and then another month from now go to 7.3 kind of thing.
Correct. Yep. Yep, and you can do that in a two-phased approach if you're that far back.
Mm-hmm.
So, an HMC, if you have a hardware management console, a flexible service processor, I'm not going to go into this as a presentation, actually do a full presentation on this, but I do want to cover looking at the HMC and the flexible service processor out there. So whether you have an HMC attached to your machine or not, you still have a flexible service processor down here on every power box. And that flexible service processor has firmware, and that firmware needs to be at a minimum level before you do your upgrade. Because IBM i, Linux, AIX, whatever your partitions above, are sitting on top of the power hypervisor, which in turn sits on the flexible service processor. And the flexible service processor is really just allocating the resources between or amongst partitions. And it talks to the HMC, and the HMC is really just the GUI interaction to it. But the HMC needs to be at a compatible level to talk to the flexible service processor. So you need to check all these things. I'm going to show you a couple of charts in a second, but the order of the upgrade is you normally upgrade the HMC, then the flexible service processor, then the OS. Now, I've been to accounts where they've never updated the HMC and the FSP. And in some of those cases, you can't do it all at once. So we've had to upgrade the HMC, then upgrade the flexible the flexible service processor firmware, then go back and upgrade the HMC to a next higher level, then go upgrade the firmware, because we couldn't just do all that at once. And then we were able to upgrade the OS and the licensed internal code doing an OS upgrade. So important to note that the HMC should be upgraded as well as the FSP. I think the HMC should be upgraded at least every 6 to 9 months because there's a lot of security exposures, being that it's a Linux kernel. You definitely want to get that updated and patched. Now, we talked about the combinations, and you always want to be in a supported box. So this is a Power 8, and here in my Power 8, I'm going to have the firmware up here, these 3 columns, and down here are my HMCs. So if I'm running, let's say, for instance, the SV830 code, and I'm running at a certain version, I got to make sure I'm not in this column here, either of these 2 columns, because it'd be unsupported. So before I do my upgrade, if I'm running 883 of the HMC, which is here, and I'm in this column here, it's supported. But if I was to upgrade the flexible service processor to 840, I go into an unsupported box. So I would first really upgrade this from 830 into 840, right? And now I'm in a supported box here, and then upgrade my my machine to 884. And this way, that would I'd up the HMC from 83 to 884, going from this box to this box, and then I would upgrade my firmware from here. So again, you got to keep track of these, and there's a combination for Power 8, Power 7, Power 6, Power 5. They're all out there, and you're going to need to just pull one for your machine. Now, some people say, well, how do I know what version of firmware I'm at? Well, you can use the display firmware status command, and it will tell you right off the top what version of firmware I'm actually running. It'll also tell me if the machine is OS managed or HMC managed. If the machine is HMC managed, it means the service processor gets its updates via the HMC. If it's operating system managed, then it gets its PTFs for the flexible service processor when I apply PTFs for the operating system on that service partition. So that's how you keep that up. So this is a good command to be able to run and see what version you're at, and then you can look at the chart and see where you are. But you always want to be, at a current supported version, no matter what. So let's talk a little bit about models. Now, somebody just asked the question, is Power 7 supported at 7.3? And you can see from this chart, yes, it is. And someone had asked if they had misread a chart. End of marketing was September 30th, 2017. End of support is April 30th, 2018. So that is 7.1. 7.2 and 7.3 are still supported. Now, if I'm on a Power 5 box, I'm not going to 7.2, right? There's just no way I'm going to 7.2. There's no way I'm going to 7.3. If I'm on a Power 6 box, I can go from 7.1 maybe to Power 6. Notice this little 1 over here. And if you have Power 5 hardware on there, like 5095s, 0595s, 5790s, that's Power 5 generation hardware attached to a Power 6 box. Usually it has an HSL loop on it. It has IOPs. That is not supported at 7.2. So if you have a Power 6, you got to be real careful. what you have attached. Now, if you have a standalone Power 6 with no external I.O. drawers, you're fine. You just have the actual KEC, which is the central electronics component. That is fine. You can upgrade that to 7.2. Now, this is saying the next chart up is Power 7. Now, not Power 7 servers, Power 7 blades and Power 7 compute nodes. So this would be like the PureFlex. Those cannot go to 7.3. Power 7 and Power 8 can go to 7.3 and 7.2. So you have no problems with the top two, Power 8 and Power 7. The next version of Power that comes out, Power 9, won't support 7.1. So when that Power comes out, it's IBM's statement of direction, that 7.1 won't be supported on there. And that makes sense. So, you know, again, it's important to keep current and updated. Now, this same chart is similar chart. It just tells me, it just goes back a little further. I use this chart all the time and just say, okay, because a lot of times people will come up and say, you know, we got a 270 and we want to upgrade. And I say, well, you can't go past 5.4 on that 270, but we want to get to 7.1. How could we do that? Well, you know, and in some of those cases, we'll actually loan them a machine and do the upgrade on the machine so that they can then move more easily or at least test the 7.1 upgrade out. But this chart's real good because it will tell you what you can't go to. So if I'm looking at this chart and I say I have a Model 800, I can see I cannot, right, because it says not supported, I cannot get to V7R1 on that box. So real important to keep track of that. So let's talk about what 7.2 will not support. We talked about the Power hardware already. We talked about these drawers, and these drawers are on Power 6. They have an HSL loop, and they're 0595s, 5095s, 5790s. Those are not supported. This is really old technology. And quite honestly, if you have these drawers, you're probably paying way too much for hardware maintenance. You really should be looking at upgrading just to save money from a hardware maintenance perspective. Now, if you're on a 5790, you easily could change it to a 5796. That does not have the HSL loop. It has the GSX bus, and that is compatible with Power 6. So there are ways to get around it. But pretty much anything that supports an IOP will not work on 7.2. And if it doesn't work on 7.2, it implies it won't work on 7.3, right? Which means there's no TwinX because the TwinX card required an IOP. So TwinX is gone at 7.2. Now, yeah, TwinX is gone at 7.2. WebSphere application server, if I'm running 7.0, that's not supported. So I have to upgrade to 8.0. And not only do I have to upgrade, but I have to upgrade to at least 8.0.08, which is FixPack 8, and if I'm on an 8.5, I got to upgrade to FixPack 2. Now, remember, when you put WebSphere PTFs on, it's a two-stage process, right? One, I put them WebSphere PTFs on the system, and that's just putting them on the licensed program. Then I got to go into WebSphere and actually apply them. We had one of my guys wrote an article this month on my newsletter. We do a monthly newsletter. If you're not subscribed, you can just go to our website and subscribe to it. And it's a free newsletter on just tips and techniques. And we talked about how to upgrade WebSphere application server. So it's pretty timely. 7.2 will also not support Java 1.4, Java 5, right? Not supported. So you need to make sure you get on Java 7 or Java 8. Now, Java 7 becomes the default for 7.2. At 7.1, Java 6 was supported. Now, most people don't know that you can load Java 7 and Java 8 on 7.1. When 7.1 came out initially back in 2010, there was no Java 7, no Java 8. So those weren't in the initial license programs. You can add them on later. We always install Java 7 and Java 8 on 7.1 because that's the version of Java that's going to be what you're going to want to be using at 7.2 and only what will be running at 7.3. So if I can put that on my system first, then I can convert any Java programs I have to Java 7, get them up and running while I'm still at 7.1, and then when I upgrade to 7.3, I lose my Java support for, let's say, 1.5, 1.6, I don't have to worry because I've already done my conversions, and that's just one less thing to worry about once I've done the upgrade. So real important to do that. And there's a command called workjvmjob, WRKJVMJOB. That command, if you run that and put a 5 next to all the jobs that are listed, will tell you what JVM you're running. So if you see 1.5, you know you can't go to 7.2. If you see 1.5 or 1.6, that means you can't go to 7.3, right? So these are important things to note about doing the upgrade. We came out with a nice little thing, 7.3 issues that need to be addressed when upgrading to 7.3. We've talked about Power 6 as a hardware perspective. Let's talk about LAN console. Now, there's only 2 consoles left, LAN console and HMC consoles. But the old client access, the one that is the version that you'd run on the PC, that does not support LAN console at 7.3. You need to run the new version of Access Client Solutions. They call it the ACS version or the Java-based version. That's ACS, Access Client Solutions. That is LAN console for 7.3. If you run the old one, you'll lose your console on the upgrade, and then you'll really be sunk. So you're going to change that, convert that before you do the upgrade. Now, if you try to do it and you're at 7.1 and you do it before the upgrade and you're not current with PTFs, you're going to have a problem. You're not going to be able to connect. You're going to have to go into the java.security file on the PC and make the required changes in that security file. Get current on your PTFs on 7.1 before you do the upgrade. You'll be able to connect to your LAN console at 7.1, and then once you go to 7.3, it's not going to be an issue. Now, the other thing we want to do is increase our license internal code space. Somebody kind of talked about this or asked this question before we started. It's real important that you increase your license internal code space. And you just do a go lick pig, and we'll take option 5. I'll show you the menu option. It's the second one from the bottom. You select that. You increase the license internal code space, and you're fine. Wait to do an IPL, and you'll be all set. Now, there is some size limitations on that, and I got a couple of charts that we'll talk about that in a second. Required PTFs. Again, we want to make sure we have the right required PTFs. Will be listed. I'll show you where to look for them, how to make sure they're on your system. If you're staying current with PTFs, you're really not going to have a problem with that. IBMI Net Server, shared printer changes, file sharing changes as you go to 7.3, right? SMB2 now gets introduced. SMB2 is available at 7.2 and 7.3 for sharing of files. At 7.3, SMB1, right, is really gone. So now you have to have SMB2. Now, you can put a PTF on and you can put it back into 7.3, but really, from a Microsoft perspective, you probably should be moving to 7.2. 1, from a security standpoint, and 2, because Microsoft's probably going to pull the plug on it any day, because it's like SSL, right? Secure socket layer was what we wanted, and then we went to TLS. It's just the evolution of security in our world as we move forward, because we just got to strive to be as secure as possible. And, Tom talked about Robin doing a presentation later on next week or the week after, and he'll definitely cover some of those kind of things, security exposures. And like I always say, you can never be too secure. So we talked about some supported versions of Java. And we talked about we'll talk about Domino in a second, and we've talked about WebSphere. We'll talk about those just a little bit more in the next slide from there. Okay, there we go. Here's Domino. So we can see here that you have to be a certain version of Domino before you upgrade. So if I'm at 6.1, right, I can't upgrade to 7. If I'm at 6.1 here at Domino 9, or even at 8.5.3, I can't upgrade to 7.2. It's not supported. So I have to upgrade my Domino. In this case, let's say I was at 8.5.3. I could upgrade it to 9.01, and then I can go across from 6.1 to 7.2. Or if I was at 7.1, I can go from 7.1 to 7.3. You want to do those upgrades first. You don't want to be going from 7.1 to 7.3 and being on Domino 8.5.3, and then you start up and Domino doesn't start, and then you have to do that upgrade. No, right? Make the plans for it and get it done ahead of time.
Hey,
now,
Pete, this is Tom. If I can just add something in,
yeah.
just to remind our listeners that we're going to be going till about 15 minutes after the top of the hour. So if you did have a meeting planned for right at the top of the hour, you will be late or you'll have to leave us early. We did plan for an hour and 15-minute presentation. So back to you, Pete. Just wanted to remind people in case they want to drop a note for somebody else that might be waiting on them.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Hey, I just, while you were doing that, I just looked at the chat, and somebody asked, Maureen asked, is Power 7 supported at 7.3? It certainly is. What with Power 7 blades, so specifically blades and Power Compute nodes, which are not Power 7 servers, those are not supported at 7.3. So if you have a Power 7 720 or an 8202 E4C, E4D, those are certainly supported at 7.3, so no worries there. Now, our load source, we need to make sure we have a minimum load source of 70 gigabytes for 7.2 if it's a physical disk. And for 7.2 TR1 and higher, as well as all of 7.3, if you have virtual disks, they can be 35 gigs. So that's important. If I'm going to upgrade to 7.2 and I'm doing I on I or VIOS on I, you want to make sure that you're I on top of VIOS. I got that one mixed up. You want to make sure that your load source is at least 70 gigabytes. And if you're on 7.2 TR1 and higher and 7.3, you can make that as small as 35 gig. Now, part of the reason for that is IBM-I uses 520 byte sectors, and the rest of the world uses 512 byte sectors. So a little bit smaller. So what we have to do is IBM actually creates, instead of it allocates an additional sector. So instead of allocating 7 sectors, it allocates 8 sectors and then stores those extra bits in that 8th sector. So if I'm creating LUNs, I don't create a 35 gig LUN on the hosting side. I would create like a 41 gig LUN to get 35 gig usable. So it's real important that you make sure when you're looking at the partition that this size is at least 35,000, right? Because otherwise it won't be a 35 gig. So you want to create them at least 41 gig and then you're safe and you don't have anything to worry about that. So let's go back to Operations Console. We know that at 6.1, when we went from 6.1 to 7.1, we lost direct attached console because that's not supported at 7.1. We had to convert to LAN console before upgrading. TwinAx is not supported at 7.2, so before we go to 7.2, we have to change to probably LAN console or an HMC, but most likely you'd probably do LAN console. For 7.3, LAN console is still supported, but the client what you run on the PC needs to not be the IBM-I client access, but the Access Client Solutions, which is the Java-based client, and you need to do that beforehand. And I've seen a couple people get bit on that, so pretty important to make sure you get that straight. Now, we did this slide for 7.3, so for 7.2, let's do it for 7.3. What's not supported? So WebSphere Application Server 8 is not supported at all at 7.3. You need to upgrade to 8.5, and you need to at least be 8.5.5.9. And lately, IBM's coming out and saying, no, go up to 8.5.5.10 or later for WebSphere Application Server. Or you can go to 9. If you're running MQ, you can't be at 7.01 or anything lower. You need to get up to 7.1.0.7 or go to version 8 of MQ to get that. And we talked a little bit about this Java, and this is that way we're going to use that work JVM job command. That Java 6 is no longer supported, and the default for 7.3 will now be JVM, and it'll be 8. And JVM 7 and 8 are the only supported Java versions of Java at 7.3. So real important to know that. So let's talk a little bit about required PTFs. So we've already covered, you know, FSP levels, and we'll cover some more stuff on required PTFs. This used to be real simple. You used to just do a Google search for an informational LPAR like II14482, and it would tell you everything inside of it. Now, it still tells you that information inside, but you have to use this whole extended URL here. So if I'm going to 7.2, that would be the URL that I want to copy and paste. I mean, I can't remember anything past HTTPS. That's a heck of a URL. But this is where you'll find the required PTFs. You'll also find them in the document that we have in there. This is just a copy of the preventive service and planning information. You definitely want to pull that and read that. Now, respins or resaves, I've heard them called both, and I kind of want to talk about what they are. This will make your upgrade faster and may possibly prevent problems. So what IBM does is, when it comes out with and let's talk about what the iBase is first. The iBase is where the license internal code is, right? That would be like 5770999. That's the license internal code. That's where the iBase is. The iBase is labeled from A through Z. Well, I've never seen it go as high as Z. Probably S is about the highest I've seen. It will get constantly resaved. So for 7.3, we're on the 4th version. We had A, B, C, D. There's your 4, right? D is the 4th letter of the alphabet. So now IBM has taken, so 7.3 came out GA, and IBM came out with the iBase. They called it A. They then had all these PTFs for the 5770999 product. They resaved them. They applied them to the license internal code, resaved the license internal code, and pushed that out as a new DVD called RSB. And then C came out, and then D came out. So that gives you later PTFs. RSD already has TR3 loaded to it. So that's going to prevent you or make your life easier because you're not going to have to put the TRs on. They're going to already be there. Now, let's not get confused with marker PTFs and with group PTFs. Because for 7.1, for instance, the marker PTF is MF9900XX, where XX is the TR number. But then there's a group PTF number that you need, which is SF99707, and that's the group. So you need to get the group, which has the marker PTF inside of it. So real important, that's just regular PTF maintenance. It really has nothing to do with upgrades. What we're talking about is the resaves, which has that already resaved, so it makes your life quicker, it makes things easier. License keys no longer come with your order. So you're going to locate your packing list that came with your order, and you're going to sign into the ESS website. This is the entitled software support. Here's the URL up here. We're going to sign into that, and you'll sign in with your user ID, not mine. You'll get your keys. If you don't have your user ID, you'll have to register the user ID, register your customer number, and then you'll pull your keys down that are associated with that customer number. I always like to install my keys ahead of time. The IBM directions say install them after the upgrade, but you're putting them into a repository. Do you ever do an upgrade and see the message, license key not found? What that message was, it says, I went to the repository, I looked, tried to find a license key for the product I'm installing, and there wasn't one in there. So if you put one in there, it takes it out, and then you don't get that message. Now, after the upgrade, if you see a message that says license key not found, you know you have a problem. I always do this ahead of time. One, because I want to use the install function, and I can always use that install function when the whole system's up and I can make a connection through the internet and through the PC. So that's important. But the other thing is, it just makes it easier. I don't want to do that on Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning. I want to do that, during the week in my preparation time, so I can check mark, yes, I have the keys. So I always use that installation. If I don't have that installation, then I do have the ability to add my license keys through here, and this is the command that I actually use, and you'll see them there. So, Tom, I'm going to send it back to you for just some information, what's new at Help Systems.
Thank you, Pete. Just to give you a little bit of a break right now, Pete's not done yet. He's got probably another 25 minutes or so of content here to give to you and some additional tips and walking through the process. I'm going to give him a break and talk a little Help Systems here. First of all, just want to update you just so you know that Help Systems is compatible with 7.3 and have been really since the get-go. I mean, that's one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves in all the different brands that we have work on 7.3. Also, this past year, we came out with Robot HA, so if anybody's in the business looking for software replication or alternatives to what maybe they have, we have Robot HA now available. Just give us a call, talk to your sales rep, and they can help you out with that. Very strategic product area for us, and love to give you a little demo on what we're doing there. Also, as your environments change, you know, like in the marketplace survey, we see that a third of the marketplace today has SAN storage, and with that comes VIOS technology for the most part. We now have Robot Monitor, which can be used for monitoring your performance real-time or historical around IBMI, and then we also can pull in the VIOS monitoring and AIX monitoring into that. So those are definite things to think about as you mix your operating systems in your data center. Then also, we're always out there helping people out better understand their security. We do IBMI security scans and have been for over 15 years. Something really hot and heavy right now. We probably do 2 or 3 of these a day for customers all over the globe. We've also extended AIX into this, so if you do use the AIX operating system, certainly we would encourage you to take advantage of that new offering that we started in September. Speaking of security, going along that line again, the network security product's been around for many years. We've added socket exit points to this, but it's also been a tool that already was monitoring FTP, ODBC, JDBC, and other exit points, and this can help offset customers that might not have the greatest object level security. We still can protect your objects and other things. While I'm asking these questions, I'm also going to open up my polling question that I have for you. One of the things that Pete talked about was 7.1, and with 7.1, IBM introduced the ability to have field exits. And field exits are enabled on the system as of 7.1, but in reality, you still need encryption software. So we have Crypto Complete, which can help as you enter a credit card number or social security number into the database, we'll encrypt it. So even if Pete is on your system and he's doing SQL or DFU or query or even backing up your system, because he's not authorized, the data is going to stay encrypted, and we do that all based on authorization list. And of course, your user application too is going to either show it unmasked, masked, or fully masked, depending upon your authority that you have. And we also have the password self-help technology here at Help Systems. I wanted to talk about that, share with you that it can be green screen or web interface that allows you to change your password if you answer your questions. In the polling question, we're wondering if you're interested in cybersecurity, automated operations, infrastructure monitoring, DRHA, business intelligence, data warehouse, document management, and then more specifically, if you'd like a free security scan, just check that off, or a free automation assessment. We also offer up business continuity services. We also do one of the things that I do a lot of is roadmaps and technology updates for our customers. We're always changing company and love to spend an hour with you talking about what's new at Help Systems. Also, Help Systems product overviews we do, or help updating your next OS level. Certainly, we'd love to talk with you about that, or Pete would love to talk to you about that. All right, Pete gave you a little break so you could refresh your voice for the long haul here. I'm going to turn it back over to you as presenter.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to start our preparation now. So we're going to want to make sure we're going to use image catalogs. Image catalogs are easier, faster. You get to check out the images beforehand. If you're downloading them, it's easier. If you got physical media, adding them to the image catalog makes it easier. So these are required PTFs if you're upgrading from 6.1, 7.1, 7.2. You'll need these PTFs out there. If you're upgrading from 6.1, you're certainly going to need these database cross-reference PTFs at 6.1. If you don't have them, you will get a database cross-reference error after the upgrade. It'll be a 303 error, and you're going to need to address that. So definitely something you want to address beforehand. Same thing for the database 7.3 group PTF you'll need for a 7.2 group PTF when you're upgrading to 7.3. So we're going to do start from this menu. So we're going to do a Golik Pigum. We're going to take option 5, and we're going to pretty much stay on this menu and go through a couple of things. Before I said we would take the allocate additional space for license internal code. Now you need to do this if you're going to 7.2 or 7.3. I recommend just doing it now. You can never do this too early, and do it in this way. You know, you'll get an IPL done with it, and you'll be all set, and it's done. So you'll have your space, and you can go into this. If you go into it a second time, it's not going to hurt anything. It's going to say, "Hey, I've already allocated the disk space. You're fine." So you go in again, like anything else. You need to make sure that you have the required space on the load source before you increase it, and these PTFs at 6.1, 6.11, 7.1, and 7.2 are required to make sure when you're doing the upgrade and the check for that. So you want to get those PTFs on first. Now, if you do that menu and you get this screen, you're really far back on PTFs. You need to get some PTFs done quickly. If you get this screen, this is the screen you should get, but when you put in your release here and you put 7.3, and if it comes up highlighted and says, I don't know what B7R3M0 is, again, you're probably a little far back on PTFs because it didn't know about that. But you should be able to just put the release that you're going into, 7.2, 7.3. It really doesn't matter which one you pick because the additional space is the same. You put it in, it'll start the allocation, and you're set. And then that's one more thing checked off on your list to do your upgrade. Oops. I always want to permanently apply all my PTFs because that's all important, getting PTFs permanently applied. I mean, I apply my PTFs permanently before I put my next set of PTFs on, but you always want to do that from an upgrade perspective anyway. I want to look at system values. I want to look at QSys libel, and I want to see if there's anything above QSys. Maybe you've created your own library. I see a lot of people create libraries called MyQSys or the company name QSys, and what they do is when they customize or create new objects, they maybe take an IBM command and they change the default and they put that above QSys. Well, I want to know what those are because we're going to need to replace them. We're going to need to change them with the new versions from the new version that we're going to, and we're going to need to figure out what you changed there originally. A lot of times I'll actually like to create a CL that does that, and then I put all your customizations into a CL, and every time we upgrade you, then I just upgrade, I run that CL, and it makes all your changes en masse. Same thing, I want to look at user library list. I want to see what's in there. I want to make sure that allow object restore is set to star all. I want to look at QVerify object restore is set to no higher than a 3, preferably a 1. If I do set it to a 1 or a 3, afterwards we'll make sure we reset it back. I don't like to leave it as a 1. I always like to at least put it back to a 3 after the upgrade. And I want to look at your startup program. I want to look at your startup program for a couple of things. One, I want to make sure it's not in QSys and it's called QStartup PGM, because if it is, or it's called QStartup, it's just going to get overwritten with the upgrade. So then nothing will start after the upgrade, and we'll think we're having all these problems. Well, everything in QSys gets overwritten, so if you have a program called QStartup, it will get overwritten as well. That's why I always put my startup program in QGPL, so it doesn't get overwritten. I also want to look at your startup program at this point in time. I want to see if you're starting subsystems in the right order. I want to see if you're leaving things out. So many times I see people have created a startup program from V1R3, 20 years ago, have never changed it, and they're missing Q user work. They're starting TCP, they're starting the writers before they start QTCP, and the writers aren't starting. So these are all items that we want to look for in your startup program. Just to make sure you have it right. We want to verify system objects. This is going to verify the database cross-reference files. And it will look at the database cross-reference files, make sure they're fine. If they're not fine and you get an error, the only way to fix that is to run a reclaimed storage database cross-reference, and I have to do it in a restricted state. So I have to wait until the system can come down completely, and then from the command line, run reclaimed storage, start database cross-reference, and it fixes the cross-reference files. I also want to make sure that QSEC offer has no secondary languages. I want to make sure that all the IBM libraries are in the system ASP and not in a user ASP. Or anything like that. I want to make sure if I have secondary languages, I know what they are, and I have the secondary language for the release that I'm going to, because after I install the licensed programs, I'm going to have to go back and install the secondary languages. I'm going to want to make sure I get that on there. I'm going to arrange my media in this order. Now, this is 5.4. This is all CDs. This is 6.1. This is just DVDs. And this is 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3. Now, in my opinion, IBM did it right at 6.1. And then probably some bean counter figured, why should we be creating, 60 different versions of DVDs? Let's combine them, and we'll have a 3 different groups. And this letter here, this little X, if it's a 1, it's Americas and Western Europe. If it's a 2, it's Eastern Europe. If it's a 3, it's Asia and Pacific. So it will actually install the languages. The only issue with that is if I download them, I'm downloading all those other languages, and it makes the size bigger than it needed to be, where 6.1 was perfect for downloading. Once I have my DVDs arranged, I'm going to start using image catalogs. I need to make sure I have the required PTFs on for image catalogs. So these are the PTFs you need. If you put these PTFs on, they'll fix all your image catalog problems before you have them. So real important to make sure you have them. So somebody asked real quick, are there more than one F multi-files? And there are. That's dependent upon each licensed program that's not part of the standard set. You would get an F multi-file. So you will have multiple ones of that. Here I'm going to create my image catalog. And so I create my image catalog, put it in create a directory with it. And then for each DVD or CD, I add that CD into the image catalog so that after I've gone through them, I have all my CDs loaded into this PTF image catalog. Now, you'll notice here my device is not ready and or the status is not ready and I don't have a device yet. I'm going to load or associate a virtual optical device with that. And when I create that when I associate the virtual optical, and I'll hit F6 down here, I'll associate the virtual optical, and now you notice it says ready. Now, I have all these DVDs are almost think about like they're like in an old cassette case, right? Or, like your DVD bag. And when you pull one out and put it into the CD player or the DVD player, that's the one that's mounted, okay? So if I do a work opt-vol, WRKOPTVOL, and I look for opt-BRT01, I will see now the iBase DVD actually loaded in there because that's what's mounted in the image catalog, which is showing up on the associated virtual optical drive. So we'll actually use that to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay on this menu for a while, and what I want to do is I want to read the image catalog. So I want to go through and I'm going to say, I want to build a list of the programs that I have on my machine and the images and the software, all these licensed programs on the image catalog. And when they match, it will automatically set them aside to do an upgrade. And then later I have to go back in and modify that and add things that maybe I didn't have out there initially, I want to put on, or the new features and functions, whatever it is, and we'll show you how to do that in a second. So I just put my release that I'm going to. In this example, I just had V7R2, and now it will read the DVD, it will read the licensed programs that I have on my machine and look for a match. When it finds a match, it will put a 1 there automatically. And now I can go through and I can put a 1 next to anything else, and it will then add that product in. If I hit F11, it'll tell me additional storage. If I hit F11, it'll tell me the expected release or the expected action that will show. So in this case, I could see, I selected Java 7, and I'm adding that to this. It wouldn't have been there before. So then I can go in and look at programs to delete or programs that are not found. So programs to delete, and we can hit F11 and look for the reason, could be, well, this program is no longer supported at the version of the software that I'm going to. So I'm going to 7.3. That's not supported anymore, so it'll tell me to delete it beforehand. Or it'll tell me, you're currently running this version of the software, but I didn't see a replacement on the image catalog, so we'll list that out. Sometimes you forget to add a DVD to the image catalog, and I've seen that happen quite a few times. Or sometimes you just didn't download the right DVD images, so you only had one licensed program, you should have had multiple ones. Now we can confirm here the software for the target release. And I'm just putting ones next to that menu and just going down from there. And I can see here, maybe I want to put row and column access control in. So I actually did an ad for that, and that will be a new product, as well as you can see Java 7 here getting new as well. And this is telling you up here how much bigger the size is going to be as I do my upgrade. So now I'm going to take the next option. I'm going to accept all the license agreements. I always say IBM's got more lawyers than Carter's got pills. You just put a 5 next to them and accept them. So you put a 5, and then you do an accept all. You do an F15, and it will accept them. They should all say accepted. If something says not accepted, if it says no in this column, that means you're not going to install that licensed program, and you'll get a failed install for that LPP. Notice there's a more down here, so we do need to address that, hit page down, and make sure that we've accepted them on both pages from there. We're going to select our console. We're in DST here or SST. Select our console. We're only going to be able to go if we're going to 7.3, an option 3 or an option 4 there, LAN console or HMC console. So real cognizant about that. And then right before the upgrade, we're going to check for commitment definitions. We're going to make sure we've two-phase commit is not active, and then we'll see that it's not, and then we need to do a full system save. Real important to get your full system save in, and it doesn't matter if you're using, GoSave 21, you're using BRMS control groups, you're using Robot Save. Just get a full system save in, because that will make it easier in case you have to go backwards. And now we want to verify the image catalog. And this is the screen we don't want to get, because if we say it says failed down here when we do a 10 to verify the image catalog, we have a problem. You put your cursor on the message and find out what the problem is. It's either you didn't increase the license internal code, you got PTFs that haven't been applied yet, and they're set to apply on the next IPL. It could be it's missing a DVD image. Find out what that is, because your upgrade is not going to go. And you really want it to make sure it says upgrade verified. So that's an important one that we'll want to see. So the actual upgrade, the upgrade can't get any easier than this. The upgrade's power down, says restart, yes, right? That's what we're doing. We're pointing it to an image catalog and saying read the image catalog. We want to make sure that our machine is in normal mode, not manual mode, right? So we want to do a normal IPL. I always end all the subsystems first, so I have a nice clean bringing of the system down, and then I do a controlled. The only time I use star immediate is if the building's on fire. Otherwise, I use controlled and let the system come down a little bit more gracefully. So I'm going to say restart, yes. I'm going to say it's an image catalog, and I'm going to point to my image catalog that we created. And now I can relax and let the image catalogs do the work and just watch it go through. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to load the license internal code, and it's going to IPL from it. After it finishes that, and that will be through your C600 codes, then you'll go into C900 where it'll start actually loading the OS, and it will load the step 2, which is loads the programs into QSYS. Depending on what you have, it's usually between like 12 and 15,000 programs that get loaded. That's the longest step, and then it will be pretty quick after that. Once that's done, it will IPL the OS, and now it starts loading the licensed programs. What you never want to see is a second line right here. Oh, you really can't see that, but it would be a second line right here where it would say licensed programs that have failed. Right? We don't want to see licensed programs that have failed. We just want to see that number click up. And then once that screen comes back, you get a sign-on screen, you're done. Now, you're done with the upgrade. We still have to put PTFs on, but you're done with the upgrade. At this point in time, we want to do some verification. So we do a Go Like Pig'em, take option 50, and we want to look and make sure we have no problems here, everything restored correctly. Notice I have a license key information not found. That's because I installed something I didn't have a license key for, because I installed my license keys first. It went to the repository. It didn't find one. It gave me an error. Not a problem. I'll find out what that is afterwards, or I can put a help on that messaging, actually get exactly what it is. Sometimes you'll see, it'll say automatic installation completed, but some programs weren't found on the media, and you're thinking, well, how can that be? Well, these are products that are skip ship products, and this is actually an old version of WebSphere that WebSphere doesn't ship with the operating system, so you would get that kind of message. This is why we go through. We're going to also want to do a Go Like Pig'em, take option 10, and we want to display, and everything should be either installed or compatible. Nothing should say back level, nothing should say error, right? And that's important to check. We'll also check QSysOpera for that as well. Now, at this point in time, if there's any special PTFs, you can put the special PTFs on, and like 7.1 has PTFs for the PTF process. So you'd put them on, IPL back to a restricted state, and put your PTFs on again. You can manually run the INZSys command at this time, or just let it happen at the next full IPL, and it will run and initialize the programs and the files in QUserSys. You're going to see multiple IPLs happen because there's going to be a lot of PTFs installed. That's okay. Here I let my INZSys start, and now we see it actually finished down here. So it's important. You really don't want to start looking at anything until you see that INZSys is completed. And you can always, like I said, run it manually if it hasn't. So a couple of things. We're going to change our system values back to what they were. If you're running access for the web, you need to reconfigure it. We're going to enable Service Director. I always just like to check it to make sure it's on. I check PM400 by doing Go PM Agent, take option 6, make sure it verifies. I look at the performance data, make sure it's got converted. I do a send PTF order to make sure I still have connectivity to IBM, and it actually works. I do I clean up my PTF groups because sometimes those will get messy after an upgrade, and I'll make sure they're all nice and clean. I'll update some client access clients if need be. I don't usually delete my image catalogs right away. I usually leave them out there for 2 weeks just in case I need to go back and use them. I don't have to reload them. If you're at 5.4, 5.3, and you're going to 6.1, you do need to do the start object conversion. If you're already at 6.1, you don't have to worry about that. If you want, there is a program on the newsletters on our website, and you can actually get a program that will actually do the conversions for you. These conversions happen at 5.4 and 7.3, either at first touch or if you actually do a display object D on them. And then you need a new starting point. You need a new save. So if you have the time, do a Go Save 21. If you don't, just save what you just changed, which is a Go Save 22. So you want to get that. So that kind of brings us up. Tom, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Pete.
We only have a few minutes left.
Yeah, lots of great information. And on behalf of Help Systems, we thank you and iTech Solutions providing this information. I'll have another contact slide in just a bit. So just a couple of things to remind people. We do have some future webinars coming up. December 7th, this Thursday, I'm doing one with my fellow cohort, Chuck Lazinski, IBMI Batch Processing Pain Points.